2, 1, 2. Ouais, le son est pas très fort, si. Enfin, il est pas trop fort. Ah ouais? Bon, bah, ça va alors. Un, deux, un, deux, un, deux. parler. Un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, trois. Un, deux. Un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, un, deux. Test. Oh, ça marche pas? Test, test, test.
Good morning, everyone. I will start with some tests with the people online. Can you tell me if you can hear me online? Yes, so that's perfect. We are ready. We are, I think, almost ready in the room. So let's start. Yes, I'm just closing the door and let's start. So welcome everybody for the second oral presentation of the P18 cohort. Thank you for the people online. You are quite a number this time. So let us know if you can follow everything. I will read you the chat of the Zoom call. I didn't took that. Up, yeah. I go again, no? Oh. So as I said to the people here, so Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year for the people online. Best wishes for this year. And once again, many thanks to the jury here and online. It's always a pleasure to welcome you, and it's a great honor to have you all, and for the quality of the exchange you have with the students. So let's go again today for that. Just a few reminder, you know that these M2 projects, the theme of them is to make the conception and pre-production of a game for each team. They have 4 months to deliver the presentation of this project, this game, but also a vertical slice. Here we are at 1 month from the final presentation, so 3 months after the start. They don't have only the game to do during that period, just to let you know. And here, the agenda of today is a presentation of these 6 games. So we have 3 this morning, a break during which you can go see them on the Plateau Projet where they work, and then see more precisely what they have done, and exchange with them with what you thought of what you heard today. And the afternoon, 3 others. And likewise, you will have time at the end of the day to go see them and discuss their propositions. So no more words. Let's go into the subject. So let's go. First project, it's your turn. So Spike, let's welcome them.
Perfect. Okay. Hello and welcome to Spike's second presentation. In Spike, you can play as a very cute hedgehog with a feisty attitude. You're embarking on a journey across a post-apocalyptic land filled with monsters, junk, and a strange substance. Spike is our main character. It's a tiny survivor of a strange mutation that confers them some odd powers. Your goal is to take revenge on the villain who decimated your peers. You will go on a quest for vengeance and fight for your survival. In short, Spike is a solo action-adventure game in isometric 3D, in which you play as a hedgehog using their own spikes as a weapon. We want to create a challenging experience for our players, built around impactful combat that contrasts with round, stylized visuals. Our animation is stop-motion inspired as a way to emphasize movements and have clear actions. The gameplay is centered around our characters' combat and movement abilities, and our experience is interspersed by calm navigation, where you can learn some more about the world you're traveling through.
As Spike, we're going to explore a large urban world left to nature. At the center of this no man's land, a strange lab seems to heavily influence the wildlife in the area. Actually, a mysterious substance is spreading out from this old place. When you explore your surroundings on your quest for revenge, you'll cross paths with friendly inhabitants that will share their story with you, but also foes that might be a bit more combative. On their journey, player skills will be tested during these encounters as well as in arena changes and boss fights. Visiting landmarks sprinkled across the world will guide our players.
Our universe and artistic approach of the game is mainly based on duality between a cute world and a challenging gameplay. We wanted through this choice to provoke ambivalent feelings between wonder during exploration and tension during fights. For animations, we had to find creative ways to make feedback clear, fun, and juicy. We think that stop motion could bring originality in the fights by creating steps in the anticipation. This process could clarify movements and attacks during combat phases. From the mix of waste and nature, we want to add lots of texture and materiality in our universe through experimentations of blending new and old instruments with jazz and tribal influences.
Our game world is made of multiple thematic zones that are linked together. You can do every zone in the order you want. To ensure that our game stays balanced, we'll use several bottlenecks to gate the player progression. Our goal is to give a unique mood to each thematic zone, from a deserted convenience store with mushrooms growing everywhere to a bar of chemicals worshipped by weird creatures. In each thematic zone, you'll spend most of your time alternating between navigation and combat. You'll encounter enemies on your way, but we'll also be confronted to more difficult challenges, such as arenas filled with monsters. And at the end of your exploration, you will find a tough boss to fight. This concludes the zone game loop, and you'll then be able to explore other areas of the world.
Now, let's have a look at our player targets and market positioning. Our target audiences is made of core and hardcore gamers who are 15 years old and older. We specifically target players who are fond of art challenges, but also enjoy cute and stylized universes. In some way, you could say that our promises were some those of Tunic. But what really set us apart is that we want the player to feel tense in every fight. Every encounter matters. Every enemy is a serious threat to the fragile hedgehog you are. Based on our player profile, we have determined to the following UX intention. Our two users have a strong achievement profile. We need to include a strong progression system to further motivate them to see everything our game has to offer. For Lucas, we need to offer a constantly challenging experience. And for Manon, the Destroyer, we need dynamic gameplay built upon fast decision making.
Who do we play as? As we mentioned, you embody this cute little creature named Spike. But Spike is not a normal hedgehog anymore, as their appearance and abilities have been altered. Indeed, during their mutation, 6 huge spikes began to grow on their back, shaping an unmistakable silhouette torn between the softness of their body and their sharp spikes. As Spike, we want you to feel really tiny, fragile, vulnerable, and resolved. We want to encourage players to be mindful of their moves and the things going on around them.
So, how does it feel to fight? As you already know, there's a huge emphasis on challenge in our game. We want to challenge our players on fast decision-making, precise timings, anticipation, spatial placement, and risk management. However, we do not want to challenge players on executing complex inputs. Our rule of thumb is that if we understood what action players meant to do, we help them do it. We aim controls to be tight and precise while being fun to play with. Finally, it's critical that our game feels fair. We use clear signs and feedbacks to highlight information in order to help players learn without frustration.
Okay, so let's dive into our gameplay mechanics. First of all, you can throw your spikes to skewer enemies, but be warned, you have a limited number of spikes and you are harmless without them. You can get your spikes back by focusing, but in order to do so, you'll have to find an opening in enemy attacks. Focusing spike is a vulnerable affair. Growing one at a time, you'll always be wanting to get that one extra spike on your back.
Your moveset is expanded with 2 other skills. You can roll to dodge or impale enemies on your back, and you can parry, which will absorb damages and create offensive opportunities. Here's a little overview of what these mechanics look like and sound like.
As we've mentioned before, we need to build a really high quality character controller for this game. To reach this goal, we work hand in hand with the game designers and give them as many tools as possible to iterate quickly on our game mechanics. For example, we provide easy tweakable parameters that are meaningful to designers. This will also be really useful when it comes to playtesting, as we'll be able to do A/B testing and fine-tune our game parameters efficiently. Now you know how you fight. Let's see who you fight against. We want to build a game with a fine-tuned gameplay. For this, we need enemies that are really adapted to our character skill sets. But we also keep in mind that we'd like to build a coherent universe. That's why we decided that all of our enemies will be mutants, allowing us a bigger freedom in the design of their patterns and their characterizations. Let's take a look at some of our enemies.
The first one is the gacha mob. It's a small insect that has evolved to use a gacha capsule as a shell. They try to keep their distance with Spike and spit up some substance at you. You'll have to either throw a spike at the right time or one to hold them to knock them out with a wall.
The second one is spike catchers. Spike catchers are able to protect themselves from spikes by, you guessed it, catching spikes. They will then throw them back at you using their wings. This enemy moves by leaping either to flee or attack. Indeed, if the spike catcher jumps on you, you'll be crushed by its weight.
And finally, for now, the mosquito. It's a very aggressive mob that rushes towards the character and explodes on contact. They can be found flying around in nature or static in a cocoon, ready to attack. The player must either roll away to dodge the mosquito or throw a spike at them before they get too close.
Our intention with Spike is to challenge hardcore gamers. With this goal in mind, all encounters, even the smallest one, must be an intense fight for the player. This is why we have a nearly full-time programmer on the AI behavior. Right behind me, you can see a simplified state machine of one of our enemy behavior. We want to build strong but imperfect enemies that have their unique strengths and flaws for our games to feel fair. You could meet the same enemies several times through your experiences, but bosses are unique. Each boss is associated to its own area, has its own behavior, attacks, and moveset. This is where the most difficult challenges of our game lies.
Now, let's dive into art direction. For the music, we used specifically designed DIY percussions and instruments built from PVC tubes and plastic membranes. Here's how they sound on their own.
The Ultra Tube. The Ultra Kazoo.
And now, here's how it sounds in context within the encounter music. To support every in-game situations, the encounter music also had to be highly interactive. To ensure the maximum readability and feedback, the encounter music changes following 3 parameters: enemy number, player life, and character's action. The more enemies are present inside of the encounter, the higher the danger. So as the number of enemies increases, so does the number of percussions players heard. As the player life decreases, we also need to change the music tone to represent this danger. So to be sure that the player is focused, we leave room for feedbacks to be understood. When we venture into this world, we want the sound to represent the sense of scale of a little hedgehog facing a nature that is soothing, but also mysterious and dangerous. To that end, the ambiences are recorded with ultrasonic microphones to give the real point of view of an hedgehog. Also, during his exploration, the player will occasionally hear soft piano jazz chords with a gambri lead on top. When he discovers a new landmark, a piano cue is played to help him localize himself on the map.
So, as we said previously, here we evolve in a round and textured world. Sorry. We wanted to give a materiality to the environment by visual and sound texture. This is the goal here, to produce the feeling of evolving in a toy world that we can touch and handle. Sorry. We choose to depict a soft post-apocalyptic universe torn between nature and waste. We embody a very small hedgehog, and we discover a very big world full of newness. And thanks to the change scale, we've got a new naive look at some object of the daily life.
So let's talk now about progression in our game, beginning with narrative progression. When beginning the game, you'll wake up in a broken experiment capsule at the shore of a toxic river. You have to fight for your survival until you discover the corpses of dead hedgehogs in the same capsule you came from. This is the real disruptive element giving Spike their reason to fight: revenge. After a while, you'll discover the place where the experiments are held and what their goals are. The next step of your quest will be to find who's responsible for these experiments. And the moment you do, you'll be hunted down by their minions. All the while, you'll try to reach the mastermind to take them down.
Along with narrative progression, the player can progress by upgrading their character. They can influence the following 3 parameters. They can take more damage by increasing their max life. They can also equip charms that are gameplay modifiers. For example, spikes that bounce on walls or explode on impact. Equipping these charms take up slots that you can extend because you have a limited number of slots and you can extend them during the game. You can progress in the game by completing arenas or boss fights. You can progress in the game by being attentive and finding mysterious nooks and crannies in the world, or spending some currency you earned during the fights. Now let's talk about the vertical slice. To synthesize our game experience in a vertical slice, we decided that we will build one thematic zone of the whole game. We want to represent a part of the game where all core mechanics have been introduced. Therefore, in terms of narration, the vertical slice will happen after you found out the experiment's goal and before you've discovered who the villain is.
Yeah, sorry. We have chosen the setting of the level, which is a flooded and abandoned arcade room. We wanted to make a level with water, swamp, nature, on a very industrial and saturated places. This is for us an opportunity to evoke soft apocalypse theme through the nostalgia and abandoned entertainment technology with neon, color, and packaging. And here the challenge is to make 3D elements that reveal the level design and the environmental narration in a moment of passing. And for the vertical slice, we would like to create a little world to explore with a sprinkle of lore and hostilities, 2 or 3 arena encounters with unique mobs, and we wanted to add a slice with an epic boss fight.
We will finish the presentation with a quick overview of our planification. We plan for the game to have a time span of 10 hours. This represents 8 thematic zones. Each will take 2 months to develop. Adding to this 6 months of pre-production and 4 months of polish for a total of 26 months. With a team beginning to 12 and going to 27 at full capacity, it will cost close to 2.8 million for salaries. Other costs will be added to this, like the QA or the localization, but we expect the publisher to estimate those since it's not our domain of expertise. We will ask for 150K to the CNC and a similar amount from the Nouvelle-Aquitaine. The publisher will complete the difference. We'll be asking for 2.5 million. After a comparison with our competitor, we plan to sell the game 20 euros. This means that in order to break even, we will need to sell at least 250,000 copies. This is taking into account taxes and distribution fees. So as game designer, Amaury and Charlotte, programmer Tristan, Ludovic, and Ilan, sound and music design Gabriel, game artist Astrid and Martin, user researcher and UX designer Benoit, and as project manager myself. Finally, in order to help us with this ambitious project, we have recruited 4 extra artists. Hélène for the animation, Raphaël as VFX artist, Blanche for the rigging, and Solène as environment artist. We also have 2 instrumentalists, Slimane Quidri, the djembe player, and Médéric Debac, a bassonist. Thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to answering any question you might have.
Thank you. Who wants to start with the question? Do not forget, as you ask a question, to tell us who you are and what type of company you work on, and your specialty. And also for the people online, don't hesitate to raise your hand, and I will try to follow the order. So who wants to start? First question, remarks, comments? I know it's the beginning of the day. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jérôme Dupierre. I'm a Cnam-Enjmin Cap Game accessibility expert, as you know. You didn't talk anything about accessibility feature. Can you, please?
Okay, so sadly, our UX designer have some health issues, so he can't be here today. So I'm not sure I can answer for him about accessibility, but I know he have worked on the accessibility file, which is ready, but he didn't have the time to put in the presentation. So, but it's ready, and we can show it to you another day if you want.
So as a team member, you don't know anything about accessibility feature of your game?
He didn't have the time to present it yet.
And this is a second presentation, and you are 1 month from the delivery?
Well, I will see with him this matter.
Okay, we have to discuss together, I guess.
Thank you. Another question, remark? Thank you.
Hi, Laura from Playdigious. Your game is very cute. That's cool. I like the design, the idea where you were going there, but it is also challenging. We discussed this before on the first presentation. You will attract players that are not hardcore players, that won't need a challenge. How will you handle this?
Okay, so I guess those would join Jérôme's point on accessibility features. So as Liam said, we're having it's difficult to work with our UX designer at the moment, but that's something we'll definitely work on during the time we still have. I think some parameters we can easily tweak are the difficulty of our mobs. In our engine, we have lots of parameters. and through that we can definitely make the game easier.
So in terms of accessibility and the fact that not hardcore players are always going to play the game, that's why we want clear signs and feedback and want to warn the players all the time of what's happening. For example, with the music, we tell him his life and the danger, the current danger, without him even having to look at the screen or UI. And also something we didn't show, and it's going to be the right moment for me to show it. But okay, wait.
Director.
When an enemy attacks, when an enemy attacks, we are going to have percussive elements that are going to play to warn him about this current danger. So there's going to be to have multiple of them. So here's the first one: when a regular enemy attacks. Going to be on the is going to be tied to the rhythm, tied to the beats. And also, when a mosquito attacks, you're going to hear this. The mosquito kazoo, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we just try to have something as readable as possible to ensure that players that are not very skilled are always going to understand what's happening on the screen.
Yep. Hello, my name is Mylène Lourdel and I do some marketing as a freelancer. It's me. Thank you for the presentation. For me, it's not really a question, but more a remark. For the budget of your game, you can't sell in 20 euros because you will get only 10 if you count the platform cut, the taxes. So even if you sell 250k units, which is already really, really huge, you will not get enough money of it. So yeah, like if your game costs more than 2 million, you can sell it 20 euros. So yeah, you should increase the price.
Okay, thank you.
I'm getting to the other question.
Say the same thing. So
It was the same question, so we go to another.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. So I'm Salomé Strapazan from Ubisoft, working as an art director. I really appreciate you put the music and the sound in the art direction. This is very clever and this is very important. I'm just wondering if you plan to have a different kind of sound for the spike itself. For the sound he can just do himself when he receives the attack, when it's just navigate a bit.
So yes, it's planned. We're going to have actually very few sounds from Spike itself. Is going to make noises when it's going to be hit or some, things like that. But most of the time it's going to be silent, and all of the characterization of his behavior and his existence is going to be manifested by his movements, the sound from his movements. So the follies, the footsteps, the sounds like this. So, and also we have the gambri instruments that kind of represents him. So, when he's safe, when he maybe, we have to discuss that with the game designers yet, but when he meets NPC player, we're going to have that instrument play. So we also try to represent him lots with the sounds and the music. For example, all of the enemies, they have very plastic instruments tied to them. So the kazoo, the percussive elements and stuff. But Spike, when he dies, is going to, I don't have it with me, but you're going to hear an ocarina made of dirt that plays. You have the gambri. So basically you have natural instruments, ethnic instruments to represent Spike, and the plastic DIY instruments to represent the enemies. I don't know if it answers your question.
Yes, it is. And I think it's very important. You can really add the cuteness of your Spike with the sound as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, your work about the sound, by the way.
Thank you.
Isaac, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Isaac Conte, senior lecturer at the Department of Language and Information Sciences of the University of Lausanne. And yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. I had a good time with the music, and seeing everything in motion is a good step. But I had a question about your narrative design. You actually choose a really classical journey, I can say. It's about finding the boss and killing it. So maybe there's something really special you're keeping about what makes this boss so particular. But yeah, I was maybe missing two things which can maybe add some kind of special supplement d'âme to your project, is the secondary characters, because they look cute too, but we don't really know if there's just what are their exact role in the story. Will there be just some kind of material we meet on the way, or are they really part of the story, and in which way? And the secondary question is, okay, Spike is cute, but how do you make me really interested in his story? So the question is, what is his personal journey? Will I discover something special about him? So if you think about stories like Celeste and others, it's for sure not mandatory, but what's the personal journey of the character? Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question. So first of all, you spoke about the narrative structure of our game. It's really a classical one, and we don't put a lot of emphasis on narration in this game. So we haven't thought about what characterizes the villain in our game yet, and it's good feedback. And secondly, so you spoke about secondary characters. You'll meet secondary characters along the way, like civilization and travelers and people you meet several times, and all of these people have a really precise relationship with the toxic substance that is in the game, and they are all characterized by their relationship with the substance. And so some of them help us along the way, but it's mainly a solitary adventure in which you discover how people cope with this post-apocalyptic world. And finally, to speak about the character and what makes Spike special, it's a bit difficult to answer yet, and it's really good feedback as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aida has a question as well. Aida?
Yes. Hello. Hello, everybody. From Denmark. So I think that I'm agreeing completely with what you're saying. There is something to contrast the voluntary. Is the cute side, like biological, and this classical illustration of biology, forest and nature, and the characters are like coming from this kind of books, but make it punk because you are hugging it. You are saying that is toxic, that is chaos, that they are becoming mutants, and this you have a beautiful idea on hacking that. So, but you have to show the process, because what we see is like engraver things, like in the past, and this cute thing, but at one moment it has to be rock. And I think this is the process I would love to see next time, is to see the mutant thing, and not only the action. I know that there are maybe issues with or problems with the visual side, but you can find references of that if you cannot draw in or is not coming. But give us this punk thing, because it's cute, but at one moment we want to see how it evolves and how it goes with the problem of contamination and all these things. I don't know if I'm right. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Aida. I think it's difficult to find like the right cursor in the punk way you speak about, but it's really good feedback. I think we lack this like craziness in the designs, of course. Thank you.
I'm going to be next week in Angoulême, so maybe if you agree, we can see each other and we can talk about that. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steven, gameplay programmer at Ubisoft. Thank you for the presentation. You talked about the macro game loop would be navigation and combat, but you didn't talk about feature related to navigation. I think that was already a remark of the last presentation, and I think we still lack specific mechanics around navigation, what they would be.
If I can just answer. Last time we spoke about exploration, which for us is quite different from navigation, in the way that exploration is much more, it's much larger, and we need to maybe put some more secrets and stuff. Navigation is more about finding the next spot to progress in the game. So that's just a point I wanted to say. And then the thing we use for navigation, as Gabriel is going to say.
So regarding the interactive system of the music exploration, following the biome you're in, the instrument that plays the main chord is changing. So over time, the player associates it with the place he's in, but also the thing that you heard, the location cue, the piano cue that plays on top of it. Each time you discover a new place is going to play, but it plays only once. So you know that each time this thing plays, you've been to a new place that you haven't been before. So we are trying to incorporate auditive feedback to help the player localize himself within the map as well.
But that's not gameplay mechanics. I mean, it's just going from point A to point B. Aren't you scared that it will be a bit, I'm sorry to say that's a bit boldy, but boring just to go there from there, even if there is some musical or visual clues? I mean, maybe there can be some switches to use, and using the abilities of your hedgehogs. I mean, you can learn spikes to switch to unlock something.
Okay, so I don't know if it will be boring, but we don't want to put challenges in our navigation, and it's really a way to pace and to rhythm our game, and we use navigation to make a pause between combat, and so we want our player to just watch what is around and try to find a bit where they'll be going.
And I think the renewal of mobs in different areas and the graphic style of different areas, as long as also the sound design, is already quite a interesting renewal that will motivate exploration. And we hope that our bosses, for example, are quite a good motivator for navigation as well in our game. We don't want to fall into the puzzle mechanic or because we want our game really to be centered around combat and to put that first. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Okay, so what you aim to be purely contemplation, in fact.
Sorry.
What you aim, your aim will be purely contemplation. For the navigation, I mean. Enjoying the settings, the environment for what it is.
Yeah, I think yes, our goal is to have like a pacing which is a bit contemplative. We also want to have like a bit of not maybe in the vertical slice, but some NPCs you can talk with, and some lore like which is developed. Because we said firstly, we want you to discover the world, like, and you got really big tension in the fights. So we want to like cool down and make it possible for the player to take the game for him and to make his proper story.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say, as Martin just said, I think the strength of the game is really that thing of tension and release. So you have very tense combat and very calm, contemplative exploration. But also wanted to add that since we have a very unique world and unique point of view, I think it's also going to be very interesting for the player to, he is going to want to discover that place. And so that is going to be also a motive to travel in the environment and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay. Hello, I'm Ines Elmer, lighting artist at Ubisoft Bordeaux. Maybe I missed that, but did you manage to do some to hierarchize information and visually speaking, like when you have a lot of enemies and FX and gameplay informations, visually wise? How did you manage to do some hierarchizations?
Yes, actually, we didn't hierarchize yet because we don't have VFX and all shiny stuff going around the fights. So, but we're gonna figure it out with our external artists, and I think we're gonna make it together and think together about this problematic, which is one of the main problematic we have as artists, of course. Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, Milan again, marketing. You put as a big part of the narrative, you discover who is the villain, but can you tell us more about this?
Okay. So we have a bit more information about the story of the villain, but yeah, okay. So the thing is, the villain is trying to reproduce experiments on animals and creatures that are out there. As a way to reproduce experiments that were done by humans. And by doing that, he acquires some information, and this information gives him power because he knows how to control the toxic substances because other creatures become stronger with the substances but lose control. And so this villain is trying to achieve having control over this thing. And so he's controlling others by having this information. And so as our main character is able to use the powers of these substances without losing control, the villain is trying to take you down.
And is the villain a human? Because like
no,
okay.
It's all the whole game happens without any humans, and it's more the villain is about trying to reproduce things of the past and this experiment and the experiments of the lab.
Because like in the current world, you can be a strong you can have a strong ecological message. And if the villain is a human corrupting nature and nature fighting against him, like it could be a really strong position. So
yeah, we don't want to speak about ecology in a direct way, but more about what would happen after this society collapses. And so this villain is really trying to recreate a model of society who, like, everybody doesn't agree with this, and so it's about how to reorganize a society after a collapse. I think it's our main theme, but it's like secondary to the game.
And this will be the last remark or question.
Hello, I'm Vincent Camboduzou from Ubisoft Paris. I'm a quest designer. I have a question linked to what Sylvain said before about the pacing. Did you already have a prototype of your level design in order to correctly check your rhythm between combat situations and exploration?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for the prototype right now, we have a character controller that's almost finished, and we're working on the implementation of different mobs. So we haven't had the opportunity yet to work on the pacing in the engine.
Okay.
So not yet, but it's definitely our next step.
Okay, don't lose time on this point.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was the last question. So let's congrats again the team and encourage them for the next step. And the next project will be Death of Internet. So let's welcome them.
Ouais, là, c'est...
Moi, je garde celui-là. J'ai tu restes à côté de moi.
Je reste à côté, c'est moi la star.
Tu es la star.
Je gère toutes les slides.
Ah non, tu regardes.
Oui, on l'a fait tous.
Moi, j'ai un autre.
Tu peux gérer avec les touches.
Your childhood friend, Nova, is dead. No more trace of her in reality. As a member of the police, you are not allowed to investigate the death of a loved one. The case is closed. However, while mourning in her apartment, you receive a message from her. Fall down the rabbit hole. Lose yourself in the meanders of her intimacy through reality and the internet. Leave her melancholy and her loneliness in order to perhaps understand what led to her death, but is she really dead? Death of Internet is a solo, story-driven, first-person exploration game, planned for PC and current generation consoles. We are inspired by Observer for the ambience, What Remains of Edith Finch for the exploration gameplay, or even the thrill of mystery from Outer Wilds.
Internet is as real as the reality. It's a mirror of it. A space where we can express freely and escape from an unsatisfying reality, like a personal open diary hidden in a plain sight. Internet exacerbates our possibilities and it impacts ourself, our real self. Nova made spaces to have a personal safe place, and we enter it. We dive into her privacy and explore her hidden thoughts, fears, wonders, and contradictions. Like a voyeur, we are not supposed to see that. It's a game about the difficulty to express feelings, dealing with identity construction, and communicate correctly as humans. Our links are fragile, imperfect, and full of paradox. Internet highlights our dysfunctionality as social beings, but at the same time, it offers new ways to better communicate and understand each other.
The story of Death of Internet takes place in a retro futuristic world. Technology has advanced to the point where AI plays a major role in society, in people's lives. The world is a blend of colorful nostalgia and cult thriller, creating a unique and unsettling atmosphere. The line between the virtual and tangible is blurred, as the advanced technology in the world has made it possible for virtual experiences. The story takes place in a society that has a constitution that regulates the use of technology in different careers, adding to the world's tech-focused culture. Overall, the world of Death of Internet is a fascinating blend of the past and future, where the impact of technology on society is a central theme.
The protagonist, Diane, is a young adult girl, a new recruit to the cyber police that resolves cases related to cyber affairs. She's curious, serious, and dedicated to her work. Empathic as a person as well, she'll be exploring her friend's apartment and looking for her. Her friend, Nova, is an IT engineer. She's very dedicated to technology and new devices, trying to reach new discoveries and how far we can go with crafting new cyber tools. She started believing in a virtual afterlife and spent a lot of time trying to make it real. Diane and Nova have been best friends for years. They mostly communicated online and haven't seen each other in real life much. Through the prism of this complex relationship with ups and downs, Diane will try to understand Nova's life path and secrets, what she could have hidden from her. Through this journey into Nova's world, she will accept her friend's choice and will finally meet her as she wanted to be.
Diane's journey is divided in 3 acts. It is composed of an intro and epilogue, both taking place outside the studio. The acts are showing the exploration phases of Diane, trying to look for her friend Nova. learning more and more about her through virtual spaces before finding her. Diane will be discovering that Nova is a member of a secret organization that aims for the creation of a virtual beyond. She will be able to access different virtual spaces, having managed to understand Nova and all that she could hide. She will then understand the reason of her death and her convictions. As players, several choices are available to us, leaving room for a dilemma, which will lead the choice for players. We are aiming for around 10 hours of playtime. This format allows us to focus on the player's experience and what we want to convey to them.
The camera is the first-person view to make an emphasis on immersion and accentuate the feeling of really discovering the intimate space of someone. The voyeuristic aspect of searching for private information. As for the controller, we are aiming to make the game accessible for most people, so there will be keyboard and controller support. We indeed intend to have the possibility to remap all the control.
Exploration, discovery, and understanding are common themes in our game. They will provide players with a sense of accomplishment and progress. Exploration will allow to experience new areas and environments, and discover objects and story elements to make informed decisions that can affect the course of the plot. Death of Internet places a strong emphasis on storytelling and character development. In order to progress through the story, the players will be able to interact and inspect objects related to Nova's intimacy, discover the virtual world she's in order to understand the course of the story.
We'll be exploring Nova's personal internet. Since she had a higher interest in the virtual world, it was here that she found ground to better express herself. We'll discover her intimacy through it and find aspects of her personality we didn't know about by inspecting her items. There will be glitches Nova will use to keep us out of places she doesn't want us to see and guide us to where she wants us to go.
Nova's behavior in this environment is like a ghost, an hologram trying to connect with you. But because of her technical and emotional struggles to communicate, she cannot meet you directly yet. We are aware of the fact that having glitches could induce epilepsy, so we'll have an option to turn it off for those who need or prefer it. The references above are about the little gadgets and programs she has made and their depiction in her virtual world.
Hyperlinks are the core of Internet and its navigation system. We have the intention to mimic the feeling of being lost in the web. Certain objects are linked with virtual spaces, themselves containing objects linked to other worlds. It's through this object that we can travel and deep dive into Nova's mental network. However, we can't go back with the same object, as we can't go back with the same link. Understanding the spaces and the way they relate each other is understanding Nova, and vice versa. Going back and forth between worlds she created is the main driving force of the narration and the progression of the game. Hyperlinks are used to navigate as traversal gameplay through a tree structure that we aim to make a much more bigger for the final game.
We have put a lot of thought into some accessibility features for the game. We've already mentioned the ability to rebind all controls and be mindful of epilepsy issues, and we also have plans to add subtitles for the entire game with some tweaks, and we are currently working on a mod that, combined with audio description, would allow blind people to play Death of Internet.
Our vertical slice takes place near the beginning of the game and lasts 15 to 20 minutes in order to introduce the gameplay systems as well as the game universe. Our goal for the full game is to develop the full story by making various virtual spaces and expand the game mechanics to add a story log, internet history as a map, or the possibility to input URL. We start the vertical slice by Diane entering the apartment of her deceased friend Nova. After a short time, she receives a message from her that appears on the computer. She then discovers the projector in order to alter the space and to be able to materialize virtual worlds. In order to access these worlds, the projector reveals hyperlinks on objects in the apartment to interact with and transports us into the virtual spaces linked to it. Diane will be discovering Nova's Stellarium world and an extension of it. It is through these spaces of expression where reality and the virtual intertwine that Diane will be able to explore the intimacy of Nova.
Dealing with the grief of losing her friend, Diane goes to Nova's studio, the place her friend used to inhabit. Her dishes are undone, and the mess left behind by her sudden disappearance are indications of a life that was abruptly interrupted. The lights don't work, and you enter into the room illuminated by the nightlight. Desaturated and empty, this cold room is now a gloomy reminder of her absence. You explore her room and search through her stuff. From the first impression of this place, you don't get much personal details from Nova. There's a journal, but the pages are torn. Then you find a projector. The projector unlocks a new dimension of the room. The dead apartment gets filled with personal items from Nova. It projects on top of the objects in the apartment interfaces Nova designed. You start to find new aspects of her you couldn't tell at first glance. Blueprints showing her passion for creating her own gadgets, a solar system and star networks that demonstrated her interest in space, and an AR diary where she managed to express her emotions. Through the hyperlinked objects in the AR studio, you can start to travel through the different spaces she made in the virtual world.
One of these spaces is the night sky itself on a water plane, the Stellarium. It is her safe place where she progressively retreated. For the first time, you see a hint of warmth in her very own command pod filled with what makes her heart beat. Gadgets, computer parts, cables. She recreated here what made her happiest in the real world. Exploring the floating star fields and looking through her personal things lying around, you begin to understand what she was invested in and her relationship with reality. Looking through her telescope, you start to see the bigger picture, and her fears start to creep in, ever so slightly. The Stellarium, as it is presented to you now, combines many aspects of what will be different spaces in the full release of the game. We chose to do this in order for you to experience more things in less time during the variable slice. Here are some references of things that are missing in this mood concept, namely all of our personal stuff lying around and lots of technology and cables around the command pod. As you get closer and closer to the heart of the matter, the lights turn on, and you see clearly what is resting in the depth of the water. The frustration of her past failures start to emerge. As far as the eye can see, broken hardware and abandoned projects. Dealing toughly with her reality, she started to reject it. As you learn more and more about her, too much even, the world starts to become unstable. Glitches prevent you from seeing things. Nova appears, angry. She didn't want you to snoop around. She forbids you from accessing this world. You're abruptly sent back to the real world.
Welcome back to reality. Let me introduce you how we began and will continue the development of our game. We are currently working in pre-production to define what will be our production unit. So how can we break down our game into different pieces, similar, so it is easier for us to develop it. As our game is divided in different environments, such as rooms and virtual spaces, we decided to choose this as the main production unit of the game. Here is how one room is created. With a total time of 1 month, the development team will go from ideation to tests with an objective of quality and agility in mind. Our game will have plenty of rooms to discover. The two presented in the vertical slice are good examples. But to correctly be sure about our production method, we would need at least 1 more month of pre-production to create a full third room. It will more precisely validate our game concept and where we want to go. We initially planned 20 rooms to embark the player into a passionate narrative journey. But as we are working with production units, we can rescale the production at any time. It can be both beneficial for the narration and the production. Considering the total development time, it can be reduced by creating rooms in parallel with a bigger team, or by the nature of the different rooms themselves. For example, an augmented reality overlay on a room costs less than creating a full new room. All modifications took into account during the development time, the post-production will have an important role of polishing and linking the different rooms together. Speaking of the full production time, dividing the game into production units makes the costs fairly clear. Here we're with around 20 rooms to develop and a team of 11 people up to 15 people at the peak of production phase, we have a fixed cost of €1,265,000 euros. And at a price of around 20 euros, at least more than 130,000 copies need to be sold, which is far less than the games we take design inspirations from. Given the agility of the production units, as we can hire new people and develop in parallel, the total development time can be of around 15 months. Now, let me introduce the wonderful team creating this game. I have Keltum and Anthony as game and narrative designers, Théophile, Johanna, and Annie as game artists, Robin and Alexandre as programmers, Alan as our UX designer, and Gaspar and Luis as our sound designers. Well, thank you for your attention. We are pleased to present to you our project and can't wait for your feedbacks.
First question in the audience.
Hello, Mathieu Girard from Tactical Adventures. Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting project, very original as well. If I understand correctly, the game experience is built by assembling different environments instead of relying with a set of game mechanics as other games and then iterating about these mechanics. So it's fairly, it's perfectly valid, but maybe it's a production risk because you will see actually the real game experience once you have designed enough of these levels to prove that it's working. So how do you intend to handle this in the production? Or maybe I did not understand the game.
First, thank you for your feedback. And also, as I said a bit before, for the Sterarium, for example, we combine different spaces in one space for the vertical slice in order to kind of test this. Yeah, okay. Kind of test like how it will feel like to move around these different spaces. But yeah, it is a challenge. And if we have a bit more time, we will try other spaces and to see how they relate to each other.
I think Théophile answered well, but just to add on things, yeah, we try to combine a lot of emotions and kind of a little of the narration part into a smaller room so we can prove directly if the concept works or not and what is our main core mechanic, as it is the moving and the traversal gameplay between the spaces and between the environments. So.
Hello, I'm Diane from ICO Partners. We are a marketing and PR agency. So I'm trying to understand a little better what it's about. Basically, you experience the story mainly through walking and looking at things, if I understood correctly, right? Or do you have like text, or is it more like a walking simulator or visual novel kind of thing? Or I'm
Well, yes, indeed, we'll be exploring, discovering things, and understanding things. So basically, for now, we only have walking, interacting, navigating through the objects, the hyperlinks. This is mainly what we focus on. We intend to perhaps add some mechanics, like some mini games. We're working on progress on it.
We would like to add that we consider adding a bit of voice acting. For example, the character talking to themselves as they see things to communicate to the player. And also, if we look through some things, we will have text written, for example, on interfaces. So we will explore, kind of, as you said, like a walking simulator, but focusing on this traversal gameplay with hyperlinks. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Just to, because you said it would be 10 hours long, and a lot of the games in that space, they're quite short generally, because there's only so much you can. Is there a necessity for?
Okay. Firstly, we said around 10 hours, but it could be rescoped as our told you. But also here is just like the tip of the iceberg. Like we tried to use like the most important elements for the beginning of the game and to put them in the Stellarium. But actually, it's like 3 different spaces when we thought about it, and then we decided to combine them. But then we already thought of around 10 spaces. We actually experience the life of Nova as she lived it and how she expressed it through her virtual spaces. And she experienced quite a lot of things. It's kind of like a wild ride. So it needs to take a bit of time to actually explain this to the player, and for the player to really understand what's going on, because the plot is quite complex with like a secret organization, like virtual afterlife and AIs and stuff like that. We don't want to send everything at the player and the player doesn't understand. It's too cryptic. So we want to take our time for the player to really digest the information. But yes, it could be a bit less than 10 hours. But for now, that was our little goal. It helped us plan our game.
Okay, and my second question was, do you have something for the player to like gather all the information they collected and remember it from, one PlayStation to another, like a journal or, mind map, or I don't know what.
Indeed. Well, we talked about us maybe for the entire game have a story log or a map, so we can recognize and remember all the spaces we explore. So, yes.
Quickly add for the visual side of things, we thought of using the analogy of a web browser to actually get the web history in a way to see, okay, where you went to and the links of things. Because, yeah, of course, here for the vertical slice, there are like 2.5 rooms actually. So it's quite easy for the player to not get lost. But for the real game, if there are like 20 rooms, of course, we will need to have some sort of log that registers all the hyperlinks that the player has found and all the important like story elements and stuff. So yeah, we considered it, but for the vertical slice, it was not mandatory. So we didn't put too much thoughts into it right now.
Okay, because for the game, it's going to be one very important element. So it's maybe risky not to do it in the vertical slice. Sorry.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Milan. I'm doing marketing. So I do have one remarks. When you start a presentation mentioning what's remain of Edith Finch observers and afterwards the expectations are really, really high. So I'm not sure you should start with this. And also keeping only this game as a reference for sales is wrong because they are just anomalies. For one indie game selling this amount of copy, you have 10,000 failing. So like at least selling way less copies. So if you want to have a realistic number of units sold, you can also check in the last years how many copies sold some other narrative games. And my other things was more a question. For me, internet is interface, like interfaces. You have like pop-up, navigators, etc. And I don't see any interface right now on the game. And do you have a strong art direction on this? Did you already think about it or not?
Yeah, so thank you for the feedback first. And yeah, we had like a lot of thoughts was put into it. But one thing we were sure right from the beginning is that we didn't want an internet like in Raf Rex the Internet, the movie and stuff like that. We wanted something very different, way more personal. And to us, we also wanted to show that what happens on internet is not necessarily disconnected to reality. And we wanted to showcase this link between what is real, what is virtual. What happens on the internet has an impact on the real world and vice versa. It was really important to us. So we decided to make the internet an actual virtual world that you experience in 3D. It takes physicality, it becomes tangible, because for us, internet is something that is tangible and it's not just ideas in the air. And showcasing too much UIs, for example, would kind of go against this wish that we had in the beginning. Of course, there will be some interfaces, but that will not be the focus on the internet words.
Thank you. Mel Larena, I think you have a question.
Yes, hello. It's Mel from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. We've been working a bit on audio description, and I just want to make a little comment. After seeing your presentation, I think that there's a big potential on doing some kind of first-person audio description. So it could be more creative, because your presentation was already very poetic and very literally. Like in that sense, I think that we could try a more subjective approach to audio description. And also about the interface or like the browser thing, you could take some inspiration from web accessibility as well, if you want. But we can talk about that another time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. Yeah, we will work on it.
Hello. I'm Lucille from Quantic Dream, a producer, and I was wondering about the blind mode you talk about on UX. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so we think about the possibility to play the game like without really moving in the environment, but with teleportation directly in the point of interest, and so have an audio description of this object and this point of interest in the game, and so you only move by point of interest to point of interest, and you can interact with objects. And all the audio description we can do to explain what there is on the screen, and you do not really move the camera or something like that. Just see, but not see, but be with this spot of interest. It should work. We hope.
Vincent, audio veteran at the Enjmin. Congrats for the presentation, because I was really hyped compared to the previous one, and I think the audio and everything you've put it in were really interesting. But I think all these questions that which pops out from the audience here are I get a mixed feeling at the end because I'm really curious to know where are you in terms of development progress right now. Just because I get the feeling that you still got lots of questions, lots of doubts, and you only have 1 month remaining. So just in terms of timing for the project.
Yeah, for the school vertical slice, we will, as we said, develop 2.5 rooms to prove our project and our intentions. But we have planned virtually to have 1 more month of pre-production to develop a full 3rd room with the final production method to be sure about our concept and our production force, kind of.
Okay, but I still got doubts on the fact that we will really get the thing if we don't see or play it, and that's my main, concern right now.
We actually already have some minimum viable product, I'd say, with gray boxes. As you saw, the little animated GIF. We actually have also the stellarium. We have all the rooms that are implemented in the game, like gameplay-wise, the interaction are there and everything. But we need to work on the level design, on how the narration is told, and also to add all the graphics to kind of accelerate the production. We intend on, for example, buying an asset pack for the real worlds to have ready-made assets that fit our artistic direction so that we kind of like get a bit more time and we can focus on, for example, the lighting, the cinematography, and just the artistic direction in general. And also, most of what you saw in the concepts are actually already in 3D. So we can just put them in the engine. That's actually what we did. And it kind of works right off the box, but there is still quite a lot of work on texturing, materials, shaders, and everything. But yeah, hopefully we reduce the scope enough so that we can manage this amount of work. And yeah, I'm quite confident that we will be able to do it. And as Manu said, we will ask for 1 more month in case we want to continue on the project.
No, so that's good news. You're on track. Okay, thanks.
And before giving the mic to Isaac, just a reminder, you can go see them and just see by yourself what they have and test it. Isaac, I think you have a question as well.
Yeah, still Isaac from University of Lausanne. So thank you very much for your presentation. I'll start by congratulating you for the amazing step forward. I think we've seen something really different this time. So thank you for that. You have a really much more coherent world and story. So I can't wait to see the next steps. So thank you. I have 2 questions for you. The first one is about the choices the player will be allowed to make. Can you maybe explain those a little more? Because you said they will be maybe quite impactful. Are they linked to the imperlink mechanic? I think one of the really interesting thing you put forward was the fact that the links will be only one-sided. So I want to understand a little more if maybe some of these choices can be done just one time, or so the question is, what's the player journey? Is it about maybe at some time pausing the game because I really have a huge choice to make between selecting a path which will be lost, or is it more about wandering on a lot of places and finally guessing the right path to get all the story? Because I think it's really 2 different things then. If you think about interactive fictions, it really changes the landscape.
Thank you for your feedback. Well, to answer the question, we, in terms of narrative design, we developed the storyboard to put in place indeed what we have, what kind of objects we have, what the player will be doing exactly in the game, to have this to have this like path and know what to do indeed. And for the hyperlink navigation, at first in the room we have the projector that will be interacting with, the player will be interacting with, to reveal the hyperlinked object. So the objects can teleport us to the virtual spaces. And the idea is to have other objects in these virtual spaces that would be able to teleport us into other virtual spaces. That's why we thought about having a map or a story log to so that the player doesn't get lost between all the spaces. What we have for now is that the objects are already there in the virtual spaces. We were thinking maybe we can have this mechanic maybe to unlock objects that we will be able to teleport us. For example, we are in a virtual space and we have two objects. One is locked and one is unlocked. So I go with the unlocked object to other virtual space, then come back and unlock the other one. So this was an idea put on paper. It's a work in progress indeed. But yes.
Yeah, just a follow-up question to understand well. So it means that basically it's really an expanding experiment. I mean, I'm unlocking doors and I'm never closing ones. I mean, it's about having even more informations and to recreate the puzzle. Is it right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
To really clear the misunderstanding, when we use a hyperlink, it doesn't disappear. It's like on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you click on it, you get somewhere, but then eventually you will find another way to go back to where you went. And so you understand these links between the spaces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because, and I'm then switching to my second question, because I think for me, there's something quite, I think something you have to consider on this idea is that you have two different, I think you have an opposition here. You have a story about loss, and then you have a quite cluttering process. I mean, you have even more information going forward. So, and I go directly to my second question because I think it's linked. So you said that you want to end the game with a big conflict. So you discover that there's still different, a lot of material spreaded, and you used those really cluttered image with a lot of stuff on the screen. And you say that it will end with this ghost not wants to prevent you to go in those secrets. And when I was listening to your presentation, I can't help to think about the myth d'Orphée, you know? So going to find the ghost, and then you don't have to turn yourself, otherwise it's lost. And I think it's interesting to have a conflict at the end with these bad ghosts. If I understand it well, you can correct me for sure. But have you considered that maybe the end could maybe be more about loss, and maybe adding a mechanic about reclosing the path, or maybe losing something? Because I mean, if we are interested in the story of this character, and we spend hours to help her and discover that she's in huge pain, ending with this maybe angry story, and trying to I don't know what you want to do with that. It's not really clear for me, actually. If you can just expand a little more about this final conflict phase, because I think that you really have something around loss here, and I think it could be part of your final message too.
Thank you for your feedback. What you said is very interesting. I think it's totally valid, but the direction we took was that actually Nova is not dead. So the loss part is only the beginning. It's what Diane believes. She believes that her friend is dead, but through the story, she understands that she's not dead actually, and that now she's virtually alive. She lives in these words, and actually these words are parts of her. She became fully virtual. So it's more of, at the end, the conflict would be, do you choose kind of like reality, or do you choose a virtual world? Because after you saw all these possibilities, everything that she went through, would you still accept her for what she is? That is not kind of a human anymore, but still a human because it's her consciousness on the internet. It was more of a dilemma like this. Plus the character is from the police, and the police also has like many secrets and stuff. So there's, I think, a conflict of interest in like, okay, now what do we do now that I know that she's not dead? Do I accept the situation? Do I tell the police or whatever? It would be this kind of dilemma.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think I missed this part, but maybe it's, for me, it still asks the question about death and loss in a way, because as you said, losing your existence, physical existence, is it some kind of death too? I mean, do what you can with those feedbacks. I know maybe it's a little messy.
Thank you. That's really interesting, and it sparks many ideas. Thank you.
Hello, Milan again. I have two short questions. First, when you say like internet is real life, it's make me think about harassment. Do you plan to talk about this in the game? Like at least internet harassment?
Yes, thank you for your question. For the story, we want to discover Nova's internet. About the harassment, are you talking about the harassment on the internet?
Yeah, like, yeah. Like, you know, social media with a lot of insult, etc., because it's not real life.
Yeah, we have some for the story. It's more the story part. So we have thoughts about more of she doesn't have a bad experience with the internet. She has a good. It's her way of expressing herself. So if she would have had a bad experience with the internet, it would kind of be a contradiction. But that's also an idea of talking about harassment. We didn't thought about that. We thought more of showing her failures and how she is in denial and refusal of reality. She is more conflicted with reality than the virtual because she feels safe in virtual and she feels well. She feels like she is in control of everything. So we are more towards that. For the social media parts, she has some social media, but since she's an IT engineer, she's very deep about informatics and technology. She doesn't have a big social media like Instagram or Facebook, but more niche ones and some forums, personal website and such.
Okay, and my second question was more like, do you plan to have an ethic path to finish the game? I mean, it's like you can find a really private conversation between the character and their partner, and you can decide to stop reading. At the end, you will have important information, but at the end, you can find this information somewhere else. So you can do the whole game without really finding really and deeply personal information on conversation or pictures.
Yes, we want to build up the relationship between Diane and Nova, like starting with a conversation and not seeing the full conversation and like discovering by maybe the end of the vertical slice or by the end of the game what would have been told. So we thought about these kind of things. Also, we didn't mention it a lot, but we have the secret organization that Nova takes part. So we want to, like what we see maybe in games such as Layers of Fear, like we have some logos, like everywhere, maybe some hints, and by the end, we discover what does it mean. So we intend indeed to have such things.
One thing to consider, but that right now we were more focused on the vertical slice, is that, yeah, indeed, there could be multiple paths and actually different stories constructed through these spaces. Right now, we were more like, as you understand the space, you understand Nova. And as you understand Nova, you understand the spaces. So it's through this like relationship between the space and the character that you know where to go. You learn something, you see that something is off, and you're like, oh, so this thing relates to that. Maybe I will check stuff that could be related to this. Like you see a strange logo, and then you remember, oh, there was a logo before or whatever. But yes, this is a possibility to have different paths. An ethical one, for example, a fully voyeuristic one. There could be different like timelines, but we didn't yet consider it because we have our hands full with the vertical slice right now.
Okay, thank you.
And final remark.
I will be quick because we're late. Just a little point on the audio description stuff that Alan and the team decide to implement in the game. It's a big deal. Definitely, you say it like it's just a common feature that you decide to implement, and this is the first time ever, as far as I know, that audio description will be implemented in a video game ever. Even The Last of Us Part 2, which allow blind people to play, does not use audio description. And it's possible because Mel, who gave a commentary just before, gave a workshop about her research topic about audio description. And this is the first tentative ever to implement audio description in a video game in real time. That's it. Good guy.
Yeah, thank you to say that. We really try hard to make this a success, and we'll be really proud of it. So. Thank you.
So a reason more to raise a round of applause to encourage them for that. And let's welcome the next and the last team of this morning session. If you want to come. So, Lost in Depiction.
Hi everyone, we're going to start. As you walk home by night, you're drawn to the lights and noise of an art gallery. Inside, you discover a strange and mysterious venue. You soon realize that touching a painting transports you into the depicted scene. In Lost in Depiction, play as Everest as she explores these pictorial spaces and unravels the underlying mysteries concealed by the gallery.
Okay, so quick game overview. We're aiming to developing the game on computer first, then on consoles, particularly on current gen consoles, so PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Lost in Depiction is a single-player game in first person. And to summarize a bit the artistic direction, welcome to an art gallery.
type of game are we making? Lost in Depiction is an exploration game. It emphasizes the discovery of different paintings as small contained worlds, each with unique characteristics, and a story the player will recompose as they go. It's also a game with interconnected paths, different abilities you must unlock to solve light puzzles, and shortcuts, gated zones, secrets, and backtracking. We call it a walking Simvania. It relies on 3 pillars: progression through exploration, the playful transformation of your environment, and an appeal to the player's senses. When the game starts, Everest enters the gallery as the exhibition is still being mounted. Everything is covered with a strange matter, a corruption emanating from the paintings. The doors close behind her, Everest is locked in and has to find a way to escape. Her adventure starts when she picks up the prism, a magical artifact which will help her travel into the paintings and transform them. To understand this premise, we have to travel back in time to the origins of an old folk tale. At a time when everyone believed images captured souls, it is said that an alchemist managed to channel this energy to give paintings life. His name was Odilon, and he was madly in love with the portrait of a woman, Ophelia. Odilon gave her life, but everything didn't go as planned. Ophelia awakened as a shapeless and cruel creature who fled into other paintings. Driven by his blind love, Odilon started chasing her in a never-ending pursuit from painting to painting. The tale has been transmitted for generations. Over time, it's been linked to many paintings displaying a corruption from an unknown source. However, no one could decipher its origin, and it remained as a legend. In the present day, a collector cultivated an interest in Odilon's story. Through careful research, she grew convinced that there was truth to the legend. She gathered a massive quantity of artifacts relating to Odilon and Ophelia, as well as paintings displaying that corruption. However, she never managed to prove her theories, enter the paintings, or give them life. She dies right before the game begins, and the exhibition Everest finds herself thrown in is thrown by her estate to showcase her life's work. It is meant as a celebration of her dedication, but also a dive into her vain obsessions for Odilon and Ophelia's tale. During the game, our protagonist will progressively pull the threads of this storyline. She will learn about her own identity. If she manages to enter the paintings while the collector failed at it her whole life, it's because she's the descendant of Odilon. Everest will also learn about the corruption. It's a remain of Odilon and Ophelia's chase. She finds it not only on the canvas, but everywhere in the gallery and painting spaces. It's a threat slowly devouring into reality, and she must clear it using her prism. Finally, she will realize that Odilon and Ophelia are still out there somewhere and will try to find them. The game ends as Everest finds Odilon and Ophelia frozen in between painting. Using her prism, she releases them and put an end to the legend. Everest finds herself back at the gallery's entrance, no trace of corruption to be seen. She freed Odilon and Ophelia and found herself on the way. The story we want to tell opposes Odilon, playing God and burning bridges to fuel his own obsessions, and Everest, who chooses to use the same powers to preserve, repair, and connect with reality.
The game features a first-person camera and controller and exploration gameplay. The player starts the experience in the gallery. It will be evolving central level that they always come back to. The player will be able to enter every painting they encounter. However, the gallery will be gated at first with unreachable zones. They will explore inside these painting spaces. We are aiming a range of different environments, each with their own artistic treatment. Through the exploration, player will recompose the story with fragments such as pages from Odilon's diary. Through painting will be different environments. We are aiming at a small scope for levels. We want them to be easily graspable for players so they can progressively create a cognitive map of the game world. To solve the exploration puzzles, the player quickly finds a prism in the gallery. This artifact is a multifaceted tool with many abilities that can alter the painting spaces. For instance, the player will be able to lighten the dark, reveal invisible elements, or fixate perspective. Although these abilities are mainly designed to act on the characteristics of the painting, such as light, texture, color. We also contemplating effects that interact with the passing of time or erasing objects. At the start of the game, the prism is empty. Player will unlock abilities and upgrade progressively. This gives us an opportunity to pace the experience, providing more complex interaction as the game advances. However, we're intending at creating light puzzle which complement the exploration rather than complex and hard-to-crack system. Here, the light alteration ability grants access to every dark zone and cave. Finally, the corruption is a central element to the player's progression. It's a trace of Odilo and Ophelia passage, which is present in each painting and even pours into the gallery. Each painting features a corruption node, a harder to find location that the player needs to access and interact with. Using the prism, they can erase this node. Doing so, they will have access to a shortcut back to the gallery. This will transform the gallery space progressively. The corruption flooding for the painting in question will disappear, granting access to new areas. And new helping elements will make their appearance in the gallery. We call this feature the overflow. For instance, erasing the corruption node inside a landscape painting will replace the corruption in the gallery coming from this painting with water. In this example, it helps switching a previous gate area from the gallery. To quickly sum up our progression, the player will be able to explore the gallery and things, but will eventually face unreachable areas. They will gain new abilities along the way, which help them transform their environment. Eventually, they will find new area, the corruption node inside the painting. Find and erase, sorry. Progressively, the player will recompose the story of Odilo and Ophelia through disseminated fragments. They will repair the game world, exploring all of the paintings, and finally, finish the game by freeing Odilo and Ophelia and the protagonist. Our vertical slice feature parts of the element we previously mentioned. We have a portion of the gallery space as well as two paintings, a very figurative one and a very abstract one, which we feel provide a good range of our intentions. We have some story elements mainly focused on the corruption and its working. You will be able to use two abilities from the prism, light alteration and infrared vision. In the full game, we want to expand the gallery space, design 10 levels for a total of 5 to 6 hours of experience, develop all of our story arcs. The prism will have all of its abilities and upgrades, and we want to implement UX features such as story log.
And let's talk about artistic direction. Our intention towards sound and visuals is to create a credible setup that will become more and more surreal. We want our players to feel this gradually while passing through the gallery, which leads to the painting and their associated universes. To reach that feeling, we use as a main reference the Layers of Fear game series, but without the horror vibes. The game takes place in an art gallery, but we want to highlight that our game is not only focused on paintings. Lost in Depiction is a project in which we invite our players to go through museum and artistic spaces. And as developers and artists, we want to experiment that pillar by mixing and transposing mediums with each other in a video game experience. Our main environments are the gallery and the levels inside each paintings. Here are some simple 3D blockings. We choose to have an inside and outside contrast with high walls and unreachable windows. And as a player, not being able to see the outside will help to reinforce the mysterious atmosphere that we want in the gallery. Light is a scenography element that we will use in the level art, with natural light coming from the top and the inside lights coming from the interior of the gallery. To design this particular space, we are mostly inspired by white cube museums or independent galleries.
Thinking about the paintings, we will build a unique scenography around them directly in the gallery by putting elements from them so they become a gateway where reality mixes with the painted realms. Every painting will have its own sound signature, composed of elements from the painting and its art style that will leak inside the gallery to guide the player towards them. That is also why we chose to create original paintings in-game to allow us a complete freedom to design the in-game spaces. Regarding the corruption that's related to Ophelia, we have shaped it to feel gooey, viscous, and lava-like for both visuals and sounds. As they emit sound and are visually appealing, they will show points of interest scattered in levels for the player.
For the vertical slice, we choose 2 paintings to revisit. We'll create for each one its level and its particular graphic treatment, and its own attached game asset that will be a reinterpretation of original paintings. Speaking of them, we have a variety of moods and shapes that we have selected by choosing an abstract painting from Janet Sobel, the creator of the dripping technique, and a more figurative one with the Dylan painting series from Arnold Böcklin. Here are our first iterations of what the level inspired by the abstract painting will look like. We have the idea to use what we see on the canvas as a ceiling in the 3D space, creating all that drips from the top that will reveal what you can find in this area. And even if this level is inspired by a 2D traditional painting technique in a video game 3D space, Jungle Drips is a level strongly inspired by artistic medium of installations, like, for instance, Yoi Kusama's or Ryoji Ikeda's one.
With ambitious artistic direction, we have ambitious technical experimentation and technical needs. So we have for the Jungle Druids scene, we are working on wave matching, which is great for simulating fluids. The problem is the cost in performance and the effect. Here you can see it can manage the light, so we can use the Prism light abilities. And you can change slides and things. Another system we made is the decal-driven effect system, which is a quick hack we made in Unity to use to mix the three space we usually use for visual effects, so object space, screen space, and world space. This is great because it can manage world space effect on object and do like alpha transformation, mesh swap, particle collision, and all of sort of thing, and emission. So it will be used for the Prism abilities like infrared, and you can change please. And for performance, so you can see the performance about the DDES, which is great. It's based on the decal system of Unity, so it's already optimized. And for the wave matching, we are using, we don't wave match all the screen. We have a geometry that is used for a mask for wave matching, so we don't wave match in the void to avoid the loss of performance.
So as the game designers have said earlier, we have the prism as the main interactive asset in a game. So it has a very simple shape because we wanted it to be a clear and non-confusing object. So it has a golden point, which is the focus of the prism, and a glassy transparent body so that we can see inside of it which ability the player is using at any time. So we have also worked on giving each ability its own visual identity. So here you can see some concept art and the first iteration in engine for the light alteration ability, and the concept art and the in-engine version for the infrared ability.
Sorry, all technical issues. So what we'd like to do in the UR department is we'd like to confirm several things here to help our team get the data that they need to further improve this. So first, we would like to prove that the concept is appreciable for everyone. So people who don't have an art background can still enjoy the game. That's something, of course, to define with the team as well. But we want as well to find out with the new abilities, features, how are they used? How can we make them easier to learn? And as well as bring back information about what is working properly. So hopefully we'll be able to bring back some results for the final presentation and maybe even answer some of your existing questions. So yes, that's all I want to say.
Now let's talk a bit about the production. So Lost in Depiction is divided in production units, which are each painting you will see in the game. They are composed of the original painting, the one you see in the gallery, the room where the painting is, the level, the painting, and its associated puzzle, and the end of the level and the impact it could have on the gallery. Considering the pure production of production units, we would need these 7 people. Overall, we arrive at a team of 11 people for the whole project. You can see here a first draft of the planning for production units. With parallel work, we achieve a production units with 7 people in 4 weeks. By counting the cost of these 7 people in 4 weeks and adding a margin of error, the pure cost for each production unit is around 38,000 euros. For 10 production units, we were talking earlier, it brings us to 9 months and a budget of 380,000 euros approximately. However, this only concerns the production units costs. Indeed, we need to add to the development costs for other features, which would take about 4 months, and also salaries for people outside of the production units in the meantime, so technical artists, sound designer, UX and UR, and producer. This brings us to a rough production budget of 750,000 euros on 13 months for the production of the whole project. Since it is a first draft, we do not include it yet the budget for external tasks like marketing, localization, QA, etc. And now let's talk quickly about Viewfinder, which is a game announced by PlayStation during the Game Awards. For people who missed this announcement, here is a short trailer. As you might have seen, we share some unique selling points with Viewfinder. First, both projects have multiple artistic directions and environmental puzzles to solve through these different artistic directions. However, from the little information we have from the trailer, they do not seem to put the emphasis on narration as much as we do. The point of presenting Viewfinder to you is to tell you we consider this game as a proof that our concept can interest players and publishers. Thank you for your attention.
So first question, yeah, or remark.
Hello again. Thank you for this presentation. I find it really interesting and to see like a game where thinking process about art and shaders are viewing out of the box, and it's not with AAA games with recipes and all that you will find really original ideas. So thanks a lot for searching those kind of stuff. It's really refreshing to see that. That's all. I just wanted to thank you for that, because yeah, it's a great way to think, and it's a great way to have new ideas and original stuff. And thank you.
Thank you very much for the feedback.
I make the most of the mic. Yes, thanks a lot. I can see lots of progress since last time. It was already very appealing, but now it's very clear. I love the way that we can explore abstract paintings. Yeah, it looks very interesting. Also, maybe she doesn't want to say that. Maybe you need a lighting artist as well for your project. Could be very helpful, especially inside the paintings with all the FX and technical art you are doing. And yeah, thanks a lot. I'm really agree with what Ines said. It's very refreshing.
And really quick last question. Did you have a memory of a broken dimension as a reference? Okay. Felt a lot that, and thank you again.
Hi, so Cécile, part of the sourcing team at Focus Entertainment. Thank you very much for the presentation. Like the previous speakers, I did see some improvement. There's something that I still I want to understand a bit more, because you are talking your story. You talk a lot about it. You talk about it very early in the pitch. I would put that a bit later, after I understood what the game mechanics are, but I'm still unsure what you want to tell with this story. I mean, what are the themes that you want to address? You're saying it's a folk tale. Folk tale have like some kind of deep underlying knowledge to pass on to the people who listen to it. So what do you want to say? What is your message?
So just first for the narrative before gameplay, it's a tricky thing because a lot of the gameplay trickles down from the narrative, and we feel it would be, a lot of, we're going to explain later that. So anyway, it's just why we chose to do this. For the narrative, I guess the background and the origin story, it all points to what you do when you have like a great power, an immense power. And the legend would be, this person using it for his own personal gain and own personal obsession, and going into something like an endless chase. And what we want to tell with the story is how our protagonist actually comes and gets inherited with the same power, but use it as a force of good. So yeah.
Okay, and just a side question about the prism and when Everest discovers it. I mean, how do you intend to present its capacities, its abilities to both the players and the character? I mean, does she already know how to use it? Do we have to learn with her?
Now she doesn't know how to use it. It's a tricky question because I think it's going to be a bit different in the vertical slice than it would be in the full game. In the vertical slice, we plan to have already an ability inside just for a progression purpose. But the idea is, I think, very much like the paintings would attract Everest. They would emit sound and they would like sort of be alive in the gallery. And I think we want the prism to sort of have the same effect. So it would be near a pedestal in the center of the gallery and falling down on the floor. So something she's attracted to, going to look at and pick. And then we're still thinking maybe it would be related to the corruption. It would be enrolled in, corruption. So she would pick it and it would produce an effect with it. And then in the game for each ability, the idea is that she, through exploration of the paintings and coming back to the gallery and having this sort of back and forth, she would find abilities room inside the gallery, and each ability room would have as a tutorial for the ability.
Thank you.
Some more questions or comments? Yeah.
Hi, Laura from Pledigious. I'm still not completely sure about how things will work in terms of puzzles. Do you have maybe some more example of puzzles? Because we have the abilities of the prism, but other than that, maybe I need just a little more detail on what kind of puzzles we'll have.
So the idea, for instance, in the vertical slice would have the light alteration, how it works. So we want to have a graduation with the abilities, but still staying on a very easy to grasp progression. So the idea is at the start, it would work as just lighting things up and being able to see more clearly, like in dark areas and stuff. And then we plan to have maybe very dark corridors, which you can't traverse if you don't use the light. So you would go in and find yourself back at the entrance. And so you'd have to use the light to actually see this corridor taking shape. And then it's a bit harder to explain without a mock-up or an image, but we plan to have it obviously for the next time.
Yeah, for the next presentation, yeah. I think it would be good to have at least a mock-up, even if it's not on the vertical slides, just to have like we plan to,
Well,
we can have this kind of puzzle extra.
Next time we hope to have in-game footage.
Hello, I'm Diane from ICO Partners. My question is more about if you plan to have 10 different environments and Metroidvanias, it's a lot of like going back and forth, and a lot of them sometimes are 2D, or you have some kind of aid to help you remember where you saw stuff. I'm a bit afraid looking at that of being lost and wandering in going back to every area and looking for all the time. So what do you have to help the player find their way?
So there are two short answers to this question. The first one is we think the level scope. So the idea is to not have huge environments, but to have kind of contained levels. But even then, you're right, 10 levels is a lot. And, we want the gallery to be a bit intricate and stuff. And so we were thinking of, that's one of the things we mentioned for the full game, a story log, which could be like an exhibition program Everest has with her, and she feels progressively. And that would sort of act both as a log of what her adventures are, and maybe a map in the exact shape is, to be designed, but the idea would be at least that for every painting, she would have a reminder of, okay, there are still stuff to do there, but I can't access them. To, maybe a full-fledged map. We still need to think about it, but yeah, it would serve that purpose.
Okay. My second question, well, it's more a remark, it's that you have it's a lot of work to do 10 different environments with if you do specific features for each one, so that's difficult.
In the time I pass the mic, I have to say that there's a lot of great comments for you on the line. I will share that with you, but congrats for your progress, your choices, and your clarity.
Thank you. And thank you online.
Hi, I'm still Jérôme Despierre. I have a question for you, Theo. Since you mentioned the cost of the accessibility feature, I'm very curious about what are they and what are they cost?
For the production of those features, it should be contained in the 4 months of other features I mentioned. 4 months might be short, but we already have our experience regarding some of this stuff. Also, it's still a first draft, and I would need to rework it, and it might be longer and more expensive that I put on the presentation. For the features, we had the discussion and we quite didn't take a decision yet regarding the target we want for accessibility, because since the game is the basis of the game is mainly on the visuals and the artistic sense we give to the paintings. The first accessibility features we thought about was more about those kind of players, so people who cannot see very well, all this kind of stuff. I forgot the word. Blind, not especially blind, but this kind of disabilities. See? So we have still to discuss and to find how we could build features for these targets. But we thought also of the main ones like subtitles, control mapping, and like for now the basic one.
Okay, so control mapping and subtitles are planned to be implemented.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would like to.
Okay. Audio description could have been a cool feature as well, but I guess it's a little bit late.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Salome again from Ubisoft Bordeaux. Just a quick question. I can see you have a sound designer. So what did you plan for the sound? Did you plan to have different sound ambience for each painting? Can you tell a bit more about that?
Yes. So first of all, inside the gallery, each painting has its own sound signature. Own sound signature. So it's a mix of what's inside the painting and its art style. And inside each painting, there will be their own ambience, and it's related to the art style also from the painting. For example, in more abstract ones that you saw in the presentation, we went in with abstract also sounds that do not represent exactly what's depicted in inside the level. And for maybe more figurative ones, we'll have more realistic sounds, but every time we are going to take into account with Rachel what the art style of the painting is going to be exactly, and so that it can have also its effects on the sounds itself.
Okay, thanks a lot. Are there some other question, remarks? And do not hesitate also online if you want to speak. Oh, I don't see any reactions. Okay, so maybe we will stop here for this morning. So let's congrats again the team. And all the team of this morning. This afternoon, we're going to have 3 other projects in the meantime. So there's lunch here. I will say the details maybe afterwards to free the people online. So thanks again for this morning exchanges. We will see and we will come back online at 2 and here, obviously. Thank you. So for the jury, there's a lunch organized here. It won't be at the same place than last time. So it's at the Foyer Magellis for those who know. It's downstairs. You go in the atrium and it will be on the right side. You will follow us and we will show you. And do not hesitate to go see the students. Maybe they go eat now, but you just later, you have time.